The silver ships came down from the sky like falling stars. They were beautiful and scary at the same time. People all over Earth stopped what they were doing to look up and watch. The ships were huge, bigger than any building most people had ever seen. They moved without making any sound. In New York City, at the United Nations building, world leaders sat in a big meeting room. Everyone was nervous. This was the first time aliens had come to Earth, at least the first time they showed themselves, to everyone. The alien who walked into the room looked like nothing anyone had seen before. He was tall, maybe 8 feet, with purple-blue skin that seemed to shine. He had 4 arms instead of 2, and his head was longer than a human head. His eyes were big and black like deep pools of water. When he spoke, a small device around his neck changed his words into different languages so everyone could understand. "I am Ambassador Kiltar of the Hegemony," the alien said. His voice was deep and smooth. "I speak for the Galactic Council, which rules most of the galaxy." Hyun-woo, a diplomat from Korea, sat in the front row. He was a thin man with gray hair and smart eyes. Next to him sat So-min, a younger woman who was taking notes on everything. She had been studying alien contact procedures for years, even though most people thought it was just science fiction. "People of Earth," Kiltar continued, spreading all 4 of his arms wide. "Your world has caught our attention. We have been watching you for some time. You are a young species, but you show spirit. You fight hard and never give up." The room was very quiet. Everyone was listening carefully to every word. "But the galaxy is a dangerous place," the alien said, and his voice became more serious. "There are many species out there that would hurt you. Some would make you their slaves. Others would kill everyone on your planet just to take your resources. The galaxy has no mercy for the weak." Tae-hyun, a Korean military officer, shifted in his seat. He had spent his whole life protecting people, and he didn't like the way this alien was talking. It sounded like a threat hidden inside friendly words. "This is why the Galactic Council has decided to help you," Kiltar said. "We are offering you protection. If you join our protectorate, we will keep you safe from all the bad things in space. No one will attack Earth while we are watching over you." Some of the world leaders looked interested. Protection from alien invaders sounded good, but others, like Hyun-woo, looked suspicious. In his experience, when someone offered something for free, they usually wanted something big in return. "Of course," Kiltar continued, "protection is not free. You will need to follow some simple rules. First, you must get rid of all your nuclear weapons. They are too dangerous for a young species to have. Second, all your military forces must report to us. We will tell them what to do. Third, Earth must give us half of everything you make. Food, metals, energy, everything. This will help pay for your protection." The room erupted in angry voices. Leaders from different countries started shouting at each other in different languages. Some thought the deal was good, others thought it was terrible. Hyun-woo raised his hand for quiet. When the room settled down, he stood up slowly. Everyone knew he was one of the smartest diplomats in the world. When he spoke, people listened. "Ambassador Kiltar," Hyun-woo said in a calm voice, "this is very generous of you. We appreciate that you want to help us." The alien's face changed in a way that might have been a smile. "You are wise to accept our offer." "Oh, we haven't accepted yet," So-min said, looking up from her notes. "We have some questions first." Kiltar's 4 arms moved in what looked like impatience. "Ask quickly. The offer will not wait forever." Hyun-woo smiled. It was a polite smile, the kind diplomats learned to use when they were being very careful. "Our question is simple, is that all?" The alien blinked his big black eyes. "What do you mean?" "Is that all the protection you're offering?" Hyun-woo asked. "Because we were hoping for something better." Kiltar looked confused. "I do not understand." "We are offering to protect your entire planet." Tae-hyun stood up next to Hyun-woo. He was a soldier and he looked like one. His uniform was perfect and his back was straight. "With respect, Ambassador, what exactly are you protecting us from?" "From the dangers of space," Kiltar repeated. "From species that would destroy you." "Which species?" So-min asked. her pen ready to write down the answer. The alien's skin color changed slightly, becoming a bit darker. Many species. Too many. To name. Can you name even one? Hyunwoo asked politely. Kiltar's forearms moved around each other in a nervous gesture. The Void Hunters. They eat entire planets. The Zephyrian Empire enslaves whole species. The Crystalline Communion turns living beings into statues for their collections. Hyunwoo nodded as if this was very interesting. And where are these dangerous species right now? Throughout the galaxy, Kiltar said. They could come here at any time. But they haven't come here yet, Taehyun pointed out. In fact, no one has attacked Earth ever except for you showing up today. The alien's skin got even darker. We are not attacking, we are offering help. By taking away our weapons and half of everything we own, Somin said. That sounds more like conquest than help. Hyunwoo walked closer to the alien ambassador. Tell me, Kiltar, how many other planets have you made this same offer to? That is not important, the alien said quickly. And how many of those planets are still free? Taehyun asked. Kiltar's forearm started moving faster. You do not understand the dangers. Oh, we understand perfectly, Hyunwoo interrupted. His voice was still polite, but there was something cold underneath it. You show up, tell us, we're in danger, offer to protect us and ask for our weapons and our freedom in return. It's very clever. So Min closed her notebook and stood up. The thing is, Ambassador, we've been dealing with bullies for thousands of years. We know what one looks like. The alien took a step back. Something in the humans' voices was making him nervous, though he couldn't understand why. They were just a primitive species with basic technology. You are making a mistake, Kiltar said. Without our protection, you will not survive. Hyunwoo's smile got wider, but his eyes got colder. That's the second part of our question, Ambassador. What second part? We asked if that's all the protection you're offering, Somin explained. But we also want to know, what makes you think we need protection? The room went very quiet again. All the world leaders were staring at the three Koreans who seemed to have taken charge of the conversation. Taehyun stepped forward. You see, we've been watching the sky for a long time. We know exactly who's out there, and we know exactly what they're capable of. Kiltar's breathing got faster. Impossible. You are a pre-space flight civilization, are we? Hyunwoo asked softly. The alien ambassador looked around the room. All the human faces were looking at him with expressions he couldn't read. But something about those expressions made his skin crawl with fear. We'll need some time to discuss. Your generous offer, Somin said in a voice that was sweet as poison. Why don't you wait for our answer? As Kiltar left the room, he had the strange feeling that he had just made a terrible mistake. But he couldn't understand why a species of primitive apes would make him feel so afraid. 3 days after the meeting at the United Nations, Ambassador Kiltar found himself in a place that should not exist. The humans called it NORAD, and it was buried deep inside a mountain in North America. The alien sensors told him that the mountain had been hollowed out and filled with technology that was more advanced than anything his people had built. Min Ho, a Korean-American general with steel-gray hair and hard eyes, walked beside the alien through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The walls were made of some kind of metal that the ambassador's scanner couldn't identify. Lights moved along the walls like living things, following them as they walked. This is impossible, Kiltar muttered in his own language. Forgetting that, his translator was still on. What's impossible? Minho asked casually, as if he hadn't just proven he could understand alien languages without a translator. The ambassador's forearms trembled slightly. Your species should not have this technology. Our records show you have barely reached your own moon. Minho smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Your records might be a little out of date. They walked into a huge room filled with screens and control panels. Humans sat at workstations, monitoring displays that showed star maps and ship movements from across the galaxy. The screens showed information that the Galactic Council thought only they had access to. "Welcome to our local monitoring station," Minho said. "We keep an eye on the neighborhood." Ji-hai, a young Korean scientist with thick glasses and quick hands, joined them at a large holographic display in the center of the room. She wore a white lab coat that had equations written on it in what looked like alien mathematics. "Ambassador," she said cheerfully, "we're so glad you're here. We have some questions about your ship designs." The hologram lit up, showing detailed blueprints of hegemony vessels. Not just the outside, but complete technical specifications, weapon systems, power sources, and crew quarters. Even the color of the food they ate was listed in the files. Kiltar's breathing device started making wheezing sounds. "Where did you get this information?" "Oh, we've been watching you for quite a while," Ji-hai said, adjusting her glasses. "Did you know your ships have a really obvious weakness in their reactor shielding? Anyone with the right frequency scanner could overload your power systems from outside your weapons range." She touched a control, and the display changed to show ships from dozens of other species. The Zephyrian Empire's dreadnoughts, the Void Hunter's stealth vessels, the Crystalline Communion's planet crackers, all of them were displayed with complete technical readouts and tactical analysis. "The Zephyrians are particularly interesting," Ji-hai continued as if she was discussing the weather. "Their plasma cannons look scary, but they have terrible heat management. Fight them near a star and their own weapons will cook them from the inside." Dongmin looked up from his workstation across the room. He was younger than the others, maybe in his 20s, but his eyes looked much older. "And the Void Hunters think they're so clever with their stealth technology. Too bad they never figured out that stealth ships still cast gravitational shadows." Kiltar turned in a slow circle, staring at all the displays. Information about every major species in the galaxy was scrolling past on hundreds of screens. Ship, movements, military strengths, economic data, even personal files on important leaders. "This is not possible," the ambassador whispered. "You would need spy networks throughout the entire galaxy." "Who says we don't?" Dongmin asked with a grin that made Kiltar's skin turn pale. Minho gestured to another set of screens. These ones showed something that made the alien ambassador's heart stop beating for a moment. They were detailed records of the Galactic Council's protection operations. "This is very interesting reading," Minho said. 47 worlds offered the same protection deal you gave us. 31 accepted. Want to guess what happened to the 16 that refused? Kiltar couldn't speak. His throat had closed up with fear. "The Kalani homeworld," Ji-hai read from a file. "Refused protection in 2387. 3 months later, the Void. Hunters just happened to attack them. What a coincidence." "The Moralian colonies," Dongmin added, "said no to the Council in 2395. Zephyrian slavers raided them 6 weeks later. Another amazing coincidence." "The Forgotten Worlds of the Outer Rim," Minho continued, "told the Council to leave them alone in 2401. Mysterious plague wiped them out the next year. Medical records show the plague was created in hegemony biolabs." The alien ambassador fell into a chair, his forearms shaking. "You cannot prove any of this." Somin walked into the room carrying a datapad. She had been in the other meetings too, the quiet woman who took notes. But now she looked different. Her eyes were sharp like knives, and she moved like a predator. "Actually, we can," she said. "We have recordings of council meetings where you planned these attacks. We have financial records showing payments to raider fleets. We even have personal messages between council members joking about the stupid primitives who thought they could refuse your protection." She handed the datapad to Kiltar. On the screen was a message in his own handwriting, sent to another council member just 2 days ago. It talked about how the humans would be dealt with if they refused the protection offer. "How?" was all Kiltar could manage to say. "The same way we've been watching everything else," Minho said. "Did you really think a species smart enough to split atoms and build computers would be too stupid to notice alien spy satellites?" Ji-hai pulled up another display. This one showed Earth's solar system, but not the way Kiltar had seen it in his briefings. Instead of one small planet with primitive technology, the display showed a complex network of defense stations, hidden shipyards, and sensor arrays that reached out past the edge of the solar system. We've known about the galaxy for a long time, she explained. We just decided to be careful about introducing ourselves. Good thing too, considering how you treat new species. Dongmin stood up from his workstation. The really funny part is we've been helping some of your victims. Remember the Altarian resistance that's been giving the Zephyrians so much trouble? Guess where they got their new weapons? The Void Hunters keep losing ships to unknown attackers, So Min added. They think it's space monsters, they're wrong. The Crystalline Communion's expansion into the Beta sector stopped completely last year, Minho finished. Their fleets just disappeared. Very mysterious. Kiltar looked around the room at all the humans. They were watching him with expressions that were polite and friendly and absolutely terrifying. He finally understood what he was looking at. These weren't primitive apes playing with technology they didn't understand. These were apex predators who had been pretending to be prey. What do you want? He asked in a voice so quiet, it was almost a whisper. Want? Jihai asked, sounding genuinely confused. We don't want anything from you. Then why are you showing me all this? So Min smiled, and Kiltar wished she hadn't. Because you offered us protection, and we wanted you to understand why that's funny. We don't need protection from galactic threats, Minho explained. We are the galactic threat that other species need protection from. But don't worry, Dongmin added cheerfully. We only hurt people who hurt innocent species. As long as you stop being bullies, we'll all get along. Fine. Kiltar stood up on shaking legs. The council will never believe this. Oh, they will, So Min said. She handed him another data pad. This contains everything we just showed you. Take it back to them. Tell them the humans said hello. As the alien ambassador left the mountain facility, his mind was spinning. His species had ruled part of the galaxy for thousands of years. They were ancient and wise and powerful. But these humans, these young apes who had barely learned to use fire, had been watching them like children playing games. And the most frightening part was that the humans seemed to think this was all perfectly normal. They talked about interstellar war and galactic politics the way other species talked about the weather. Kiltar realized he needed to warn the council immediately, but as his ship lifted off from Earth, he couldn't shake the feeling that it was already too late. The humans knew everything, and they had been patient for a very long time. Now they were tired of waiting. Admiral Seung-ho was not a tall man, but when he walked, people moved out of his way. He had spent 40 years in the Korean Navy, and 20 more years in a navy that officially didn't exist. Now he was showing Ambassador Kiltar around a space station that wasn't supposed to be there. The station hung in space between Earth and the Moon, invisible to most sensors. It looked like a piece of twisted metal and crystal, beautiful and deadly at the same time. Through the transparent walls, Kiltar could see Earth spinning slowly below them, blue and white and perfect. Beautiful planet, Seung-ho said, noticing where the alien was looking. We're very protective of it. This station, Kiltar said, his voice shaking. How long has it been here? This one? About 50 years, Seung-ho replied casually. It's one of the newer ones. We have older stations further out, but they're not as pretty. Young Jin joined them at the observation deck. She was the station commander, a woman in her 40s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She carried a tablet that showed ship movements throughout the solar system. Ambassador, she said politely, we hope you enjoyed your visit to Earth, but we need to discuss some concerns. The alien's forearms moved nervously. What concerns? Young Jin touched her tablet, and the wall display lit up with a tactical view of local space. Red dots marked several ships that were trying to hide in the asteroid belt. These are Council survey vessels, she explained. They've been trying to map our defense networks for the past week. Very persistent, but not very good at hiding. One of the red dots was moving closer to the station. As they watched, a sleek human ship appeared beside it like a shark rising from deep water. The Council vessel immediately changed course and headed back toward the outer system. That's the third time today, Seung-ho said with mild annoyance. Your people are very curious about our capabilities. Bora appeared beside them without making a sound. She was small and quiet, and gave Kiltar the impression that she could kill him in a dozen different ways without raising her voice. Her Job title was Intelligence Coordinator, but her real job was knowing everything that happened within 100 light years of Earth. The timing is interesting, she said in a voice like silk over steel. 3 different hostile fleets started, moving toward our sector right after you made your protection offer. The Void Hunters, a Zephyrian battle group and something we haven't identified yet. Kiltar's skin turned pale. I know nothing about any fleets. Of course you don't, Bora agreed. Just like you know nothing about the 67% extraction clause in your protection contracts, or the penalty fees for worlds that can't pay, or what happens to populations that resist relocation to labor camps. She handed him a data pad. The screen showed a contract written in Galactic Standard, with the hegemony's official seal. It was the same contract they had offered to Earth, but this copy had additional pages that hadn't been shown to the human diplomats. Article 47 is particularly interesting, Bora continued. If a protected world fails to meet its resource quotas for 3 consecutive cycles, the Council has the right to relocate surplus population to areas where they can be more productive. That's a very polite way of saying slavery. Young Jin pulled up another display. We've been tracking the outcomes of your protection contracts, Ambassador. 31 worlds accepted your offer. Today, those worlds have an average population that is 40% lower than when they signed. Their resource output has increased by 300%. Very efficient. Shungho stepped closer to the alien. What bothers us, Ambassador, is that your protection offer came right after we detected those hostile fleets, almost like someone was coordinating things. You're suggesting the Council would attack Earth? Kiltar asked, but his voice suggested he already knew the answer. We're not suggesting anything, Bora replied. We're stating facts. The same pattern has been used 47 times. Offer protection, get refused, arrange for pirates or hostile species to attack, then show up afterward to help the survivors. Very clever. The alien ambassador looked around at the 3 humans. They were watching him with the patience of predators who had already cornered their prey. What do you want from me? He asked. Nothing from you personally, Sung-ho said. But we want you to understand something. Your protection is inadequate. Inadequate? Young Jin gestured to the tactical display. You're offering to protect us from 3 or 4 hostile species, but our sensors show over 200 different civilizations in this galaxy. 17 of them are actively planning attacks on various worlds right now. 43 more are building military forces for future expansion. The galaxy is a very dangerous place. More dangerous than you know, Bora added. There are things out there that make the Void Hunters look like friendly neighbors. Things that eat stars. Things that turn entire species into puppets. Things that exist outside normal space and time. Kiltar's breathing became rapid and shallow. You know about the deep ones? The 3 humans exchanged glances. Bora nodded slowly. Among other things, the question is, what are you doing about them? The Council monitors the situation, Kiltar said weakly. Monitors, Shung-ho repeated. That's all? What happens when monitoring isn't enough? Before the alien could answer, alarms started ringing throughout the station. Young Jin touched her tablet, and the display changed to show something that made Kiltar's blood freeze. It was a ship, but not like any ship in the known galaxy. It was black as space itself, and it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect. The shape hurt to look at, as if it existed in more dimensions than the mind could process. Deep Scout, Bora said calmly. Class 7 entity. It's been probing the edge of our solar system for the past 6 hours. You knew it was there? Kiltar gasped. We've been tracking it since it entered this sector 3 days ago, Young Jin replied. Standard procedure is to observe and catalog before taking action. The alien watched in horror as human ships began moving toward the entity. They didn't run away or hide. They approached it like they were going to introduce themselves. You can't fight that, Kiltar whispered. Deep Ones destroyed the ancients. They wiped out civilizations that were old when my people were still living in caves. Did they? Sung-ho asked with interest. How exactly? They corrupt reality itself. They turn space and time into weapons. They make stars go cold and planets scream. On the display, the human ships had surrounded the Deep Scout. Weapons powered up, but not the kind of weapons Kiltar recognized. These looked like they were made from crystallized light and folded space. Interesting, Bora commented. Our analysis suggests their reality distortion fields work by manipulating quantum foam at the subatomic level. Clever, but not unstoppable. The battle began and ended in less than 30 seconds. The Deep Scout's reality distortion field met human weapons that seemed to stabilize space-time instead of disrupting it. The entity's ship stopped moving, then began to dissolve like sugar in water. Target neutralized, Young Jin reported. Cleanup. Crews are moving to collect any useful technology. Kiltar fell into a chair, his forearms trembling uncontrollably. You destroyed a deep one. We destroyed a scout, Sung-ho corrected. The main hive is still out there, but it's not our immediate concern. How? The alien whispered. Bora smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Kiltar had ever seen. The same way we deal with all threats to our neighborhood. We study them, we understand them, and then we remove them. But your species is so young, Kiltar protested. How could you develop such weapons? Young Jin exchanged another look with her colleagues. Ambassador, what makes you think we're young? The alien blinked his large black eyes. Your civilization has only existed for a few thousand years. Our records show. Your records show what we wanted them to show, Sung-ho interrupted. Did you really think we would let you know our real capabilities? Bora pulled up another display. This one showed archaeological sites on Earth, but not the ones that appeared in textbooks. These showed technology that was millions of years old, buried under ice and stone and time. We've been around for a while, she said quietly. We just like to keep a low profile. Kiltar stared at the evidence in front of him. Ancient human settlements on worlds that his people thought were uninhabited. Star maps that showed human exploration routes going back millennia. Technology that made the Galactic Council's best science look like children's toys. The protection you're offering, he said slowly, is to protect us from you. Now you're starting to understand, Young Jin said approvingly. But we don't want to hurt anyone, Sung-ho added. We just want everyone to get along and stop bothering each other. Bora nodded. The problem is some species don't want to get along. They prefer to take what they want by force. That's where we come in. As the real protection, Kiltar said, understanding finally dawning. Exactly, all three humans said, at the same time. The alien ambassador looked out at the stars, and for the first time in his life, he wondered what else was out there watching him. The hegemony warfleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly where human intelligence had predicted it would. 137 ships appeared in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, their hulls gleaming with weapons and armor. It was the largest military force the hegemony had sent anywhere in 50 years. Inho stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching the enemy fleet arrange itself into attack formation. He was Earth's newly appointed Director of Galactic Relations, a job title that hadn't existed until 3 days ago. He was a calm man in his 50s with gray hair and the kind of steady hands that came from years of handling delicate situations. Impressive, he said, studying the tactical display. They brought everything they had. The flagship was called Soul's Pride, and it didn't look like much compared to the massive hegemony dreadnoughts. It was smaller, sleeker, and appeared to be made from some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Most people would have thought it was just a fancy transport ship. Sunmi, the tactical officer, looked up from her displays with the expression of someone reading a grocery list. 67 dreadnoughts, 33 destroyer escorts, 412 smaller vessels. Standard hegemony attack formation. They're powering weapons and demanding our surrender. What exactly are they demanding? Inho asked. Complete surrender of Earth government, immediate cessation of all military activities, and permission to land occupation forces in all major cities. Sunmi read from her communications panel. They're giving us 10 minutes to comply. Wu Jin, the communications officer, looked over from his station. Should I send the standard response package? Inho nodded. Yes, but add the cultural context files. They might find them educational. What the hegemony fleet received was not a surrender, but rather a complete intelligence briefing on every ship in their formation. The data package included technical specifications for each vessel, complete crew manifests with personal files on every officer, detailed analyses of weapon systems and their weaknesses, and maintenance records showing which ships were overdue for repairs. The briefing also included something that made Fleet Commander Zek Thol's blood run cold: accurate predictions of his battle plan, including the exact positioning he intended to use and the timing of his planned attacks. The final section of the briefing was a polite suggestion that the fleet reconsider its approach, along with detailed directions to the nearest neutral spaceport, where they could refuel and reconsider their life choices. Zek Thol's response was immediate and predictable. He ordered all ships to open fire. Jae-min, the weapons coordinator, looked almost apologetic as he activated Earth's defensive systems. He was young for such an important job, maybe in his early 30s, but he had the kind of calm competence that made experienced officers trust him completely. Honestly, he said to nobody in particular, we tried to be diplomatic. The space around Earth's fleet suddenly filled with light, but it wasn't the light of weapons firing. Instead, it was the light of space itself being twisted and folded. The laws of physics bent like rubber, and the hegemony fleet found itself facing something that should have been impossible. Their plasma bolts and particle beams struck barriers that converted the energy into power for Earth systems. Their missiles turned around in mid-flight and began attacking their own ships. Their targeting computers showed readings that couldn't be real. The human ships were somehow in several different places at the same time. Time dilation fields are holding steady, reported Kyung-soo from the engineering station. Enemy weapons are experiencing temporal displacement of approximately 4 seconds. What this meant in practical terms was that when the hegemony fired their weapons, the shots wouldn't hit their targets until 4 seconds later. But the human ships were moving through folded space, covering enormous distances in those 4 seconds. Dimensional anchors are in place, added Hae-jin from the defensive systems panel. Enemy ships cannot retreat to faster-than-light travel. The hegemony fleet was trapped, outgunned, and completely outmatched by technology they couldn't understand. Their weapons couldn't hit targets that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their defenses couldn't stop attacks that came from directions that didn't exist in normal space. But the humans were being careful. Instead of destroying the enemy ships outright, they were using precision strikes to disable weapons and engines. Crews were being transported to safety before their vessels were neutralized. It was the most polite military defeat in galactic history. "Why are you not killing them?" asked Bo Kyung, a military observer who was recording the battle for later analysis. "Because they're not the real enemy," In-ho replied. "They're just following orders from people who don't understand the situation." The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds. When it was over, 60% of the hegemony fleet was drifting in space with disabled engines and weapons. The rest had surrendered when they realized their situation was hopeless. In-ho opened a communication channel to the surviving ships. "Fleet Commander Zek Thol, this is Director In-ho of Earth. Are you receiving this transmission?" The response was weak and filled with static. Yes, I receive you." "Good. I want you to understand that we could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first 30 seconds. We chose not to because we prefer diplomacy to violence." What are you?" In-ho considered the question carefully. "We're your new neighbors, and we believe in maintaining a peaceful neighborhood." He switched to a general broadcast that would be received by every ship and space station within 100 light-years. "This is Director In-ho of Earth. We understand there may have been some confusion about our position regarding galactic politics. Let me clarify a few things. The communication was being picked up by monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Species that had never heard of humans were suddenly paying very close attention. First, Earth is not interested in conquering anyone. We have no desire to rule over other species or take their resources. We simply want to be left alone to live, in peace." Jae-min looked up from his weapons panel. "Should I mention that we could have destroyed their entire fleet with a single shot?" "No need," In-ho replied. "I think they understand our capabilities now." He continued his broadcast. "Second, We will not tolerate threats to innocent civilizations. Species that prey on weaker neighbors, enslave populations, or engage in unprovoked aggression will find themselves dealing with us. Third, the protection racket operated by the so-called Galactic Council ends now. We have detailed records of their activities, and we will be sharing this information with all affected species. Sunmi highlighted something on her tactical display. Sir, we're detecting faster-than-light signatures from 17 different sectors. Other species are mobilizing fleets. Expected, Inho said calmly. They want to see what we're capable. Faiz, should we prepare for more battles? Asked Wu Jin. No need. Send them the same information package we sent to the hegemony. Include everything. Our sensor readings, our technical capabilities, our military doctrine. Let them study it carefully. Bokyung looked shocked. You're giving away our military secrets? Inho smiled, and it was the smile of someone who held all the cards in a very high-stakes game. We're not giving away secrets. We're sending a message. What message? That this demonstration was us being gentle. Across the galaxy, military analysts and intelligence officers were studying the data from Earth with growing horror. The humans had casually demonstrated technology that made every other species look like children playing with sticks and stones. But the truly terrifying part was the restraint they had shown. The hegemony fleet should have been destroyed completely. Instead, most of the crews were alive and unharmed. Their ships were disabled, not destroyed. It was the kind of precise, controlled application of force that showed absolute confidence and overwhelming superiority. Even more frightening was the fact that Earth's fleet had consisted of only 12 ships. 12 ships had defeated a force that could have conquered most star systems single-handedly. Inho made one final broadcast to the galaxy. To any species considering hostile action against Earth or our interests, we recommend you reconsider. We prefer peace, but we are very good at war. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. Fleet Commander Zekthol, sitting in the wreckage of his command ship, finally understood what Ambassador Kiltar had been trying to tell the Council. The humans weren't a primitive species that needed protection. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, and they had just announced their presence to everyone. 6 months after the hegemony fleet's defeat, the Galactic Council convened for the first time in centuries with a human sitting in the central arbitrator's chair. The chamber was ancient, built by a species that had been extinct for millennia, with walls that glowed with their own inner light, and seats carved from crystallized starlight. Yunju had never expected to be sitting in that chair when she woke up that morning on Earth. She was a career diplomat, someone who solved problems, with words instead of weapons. But the galaxy had problems that needed solving, and somehow she had become the person everyone expected to solve them. She was a small woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. She wore a simple blue suit that looked out of place among all the elaborate alien formal wear, but nobody in the chamber made the mistake of thinking she was anything other than the most dangerous person in the room. The first item on our agenda, Yunju announced, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems, is the restructuring of galactic protection services. The chamber held representatives from over 200 species, some appearing in person and others attending through holographic projection. Many of the seats were empty. Their occupants had decided that discretion was the better part of valor after seeing what happened to the hegemony fleet. The hegemony's entire delegation was notably absent. Their government was currently undergoing what Earth diplomatically called administrative reorganization, which was a polite way of saying that their military leaders were in prison and their politicians were learning new careers. Kyung-ho, serving as Earth's military attaché, gestured to a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed the galaxy's updated political boundaries, but they looked very different from the old maps. Gone were the large empire boundaries and spheres of influence. Instead, the map showed individual systems and worlds, each marked with their current status. As you can see, Kyung-ho explained in the tone of a teacher addressing particularly slow students, we've taken the liberty of establishing proper patrol routes throughout the galaxy. The era of empire building and resource extraction is over. Elder Mordoon of the ancient crystalline communion raised a crystalline appendage that caught the light like a prism. His species had been around longer than most others could remember, and they were used to being treated with respect and fear. "And if we refuse Earth's guidance?" he asked, his voice like the sound of wind through crystal chimes. HFY, Earth's diplomatic corps commander, smiled with the kind of pleasant expression that made experienced negotiators check their escape routes. She was younger than Unju but had the same steel underneath her polite exterior. "Oh, you're absolutely free to refuse," she said in a voice like honey over broken glass. "We're not conquerors after all. We simply believe in strong neighborhood watch programs." She gestured to the chamber's main viewport where Earth's new galactic patrol fleet hung in space like sleeping dragons. The ships were beautiful in the way that apex predators were beautiful. Sleek, efficient, and absolutely deadly. "Of course," HFY continued, "we'll still need to investigate any suspicious activities. Mass enslavement, planetary destruction, unprovoked invasions, protection rackets, that sort of thing. We take a very dim view of bullying." Ambassador Kiltar, now serving as what the humans politely called a cultural liaison, stood with obvious reluctance. His forearms trembled slightly as he spoke. "What exactly does Earth want from the galaxy?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Every being in the chamber leaned forward to hear the answer. This was what they had all been wondering since the humans had announced their presence with such dramatic flair. Unju's smile was warm and genuine, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. "Ambassador, that's the beautiful thing about our approach. We don't want anything from you." She stood up slowly, and every being in the chamber suddenly felt like prey animals who had just noticed the predator watching them. It wasn't anything she did or said. It was simply the presence of someone who held absolute power and knew it. "We simply want you to be safe," she continued. "All of you, whether you like it or not." Jiwan, seated at the military advisory panel, added with cheerful menace, "After all, that's what neighbors are for." The chamber fell silent, except for the soft hum of Earth's monitoring systems. Over the past 6 months, every ship, every station, every inhabited world in the galaxy had discovered small devices that had somehow appeared in their most secure locations. The devices didn't do anything harmful. They just watched and recorded and transmitted data back to Earth. Not as conquerors, but as the kind of neighbors who noticed when your lights were on too late and when someone was screaming in your backyard. "But what about our sovereignty?" asked Representative Velmore of the Trade Federation, a species of merchants who had built their economy on exploiting weaker civilizations. "What about it?" Unju asked with genuine curiosity. "You're still free to govern yourselves however you want. Trade with whoever you want. Live however you want. But you're not free to hurt people anymore," Jiwan finished. "Think of it as a universal restraining order against bullying." The implications were staggering. Earth wasn't demanding tribute or territory. They weren't installing governors or occupation forces. They were simply announcing that the age of the strong, preying on the weak, was over. Kyung-ho pulled up another display showing crime statistics across the galaxy. Piracy is down 97% in the past 6 months. Slave trading has dropped to nearly zero. Unprovoked military attacks have ceased completely. "How?" asked Elder Morden. "Simple," HFY replied. "Pirates, enslavers, and warmongers have discovered that their activities have consequences now. Real consequences, delivered with surgical precision by beings who don't make threats. We make promises." The display changed to show dozens of former pirate strongholds and slave markets. They were all empty now, their occupants either in rehabilitation, programs or serving as examples of what happened when you ignored Earth's new neighborhood rules. The Black Star Raiders thought they could continue their operations in the Outer Rim, Jiwan said conversationally. They were wrong. The flesh markets of Kepler 7th assumed they were too far away for us to notice. They were also wrong. "But surely you can't monitor the entire galaxy," protested Chancellor Thrix of the Mercantile Union. Unju's smile got wider. "Can't we?" The holographic display changed again, this time showing a real-time map of galactic shipping. Every cargo vessel, every passenger transport, every military patrol was marked and tracked. The level of surveillance was so complete that it made the old Galactic Council's intelligence networks look like children playing spy games. "We know where everyone is," Kyung-ho explained. "We know what they're carrying. We know where they're going and why. And if someone is doing something that hurts innocent people, we know about it immediately." "This is tyranny," Velmore declared. "No," Yunju corrected gently. "Tyranny is when the strong rule over the weak for their own benefit. What we're establishing is more like cosmic law enforcement." She gestured to the viewport again, where Earth's patrol ships moved through space with the confidence of absolute authority. "Think of us as the galaxy's police force. We don't make the laws, you can govern yourselves however you want. But we enforce the basic rule that you don't get to hurt people who can't defend themselves." Kiltar raised one of his 4 hands. "And if we disagree with your definition of hurting people?" Haewon pulled out a tablet and began reading from it. "Let's see. Systematic oppression based on species or origin, check. Forced labor and slavery, check. Unprovoked military aggression, check. Resource extraction without compensation to local populations, check. Biological or chemical weapons testing on sapient beings, check." She looked up from the tablet. "Are you planning to disagree with any of those?" The chamber remained silent. "Good," Yunju said with satisfaction. "Then we shouldn't have any problems." Elder Morden made a sound like wind through broken crystal. "And how long will this protection last?" "Forever," Ji-won replied cheerfully. "Or until every species in the galaxy learns to be nice to each other, whichever comes first." The meeting continued for several more hours, but the important business had been concluded in the first few minutes. Earth had not conquered the galaxy in any traditional sense. They had simply announced that they were now in charge of making sure everyone played nicely. As the representatives began filing out of the chamber, many of them were thinking the same thing. This was either the beginning of the greatest era of peace and prosperity the galaxy had ever known, or the most sophisticated form of conquest ever devised. The humans, for their part, seemed to think there was no difference between the two. Years later, when young beings asked their elders about the time before humanity's protection, the old ones would shake their heads and speak in whispers about the bad old days. Days when entire civilizations could disappear overnight, when the strong preyed on the weak with impunity, and when the galaxy was ruled by fear and greed. But then, they would say, the humans smiled and asked if that was all we had to offer. And everything changed. Some species called it liberation, others called it the most benevolent conquest in galactic history.